sort of our typical treatment to put it on the left, and a lot of times we're avoiding bus stops. And this is sort of a unique situation where there aren't local bus stops. It's a lot of it will depend on exactly how the configuration of the bike lane across 23rd Street goes. It's actually a fair comment and not out of the realm of possibility. So we can take a look at it, make sure we've thought it all through. But we currently think the left side would be better, but we'll take a second.
And to just tack it on to the concerns that have been raised here, the way you normally configure these, you have a turning bay and a bike lane, and they each get their own cycle and signal. So it seems like you're going to have greater difficulty and more congestion if you have the bike lane on the left side. But that's just to add on to this. Can I ask one more?
Sure.
Okay. The bikeway coming across 17th Street, it looks like you have planters dividing, separating the bikeway from the traffic lane. You have a marked, probably a green lane, and then you may have a pavement difference that separates the pedestrian plaza. We have quite a lot of experience with these situations, and especially tourists don't really have enough queues, and so you have a lot of pedestrian bicyclist conflicts. Anything that you can do, whether it's a change in grade, a curve, at the intersection signage, have you thought of any of this, or is this just going to be the same plan where you're still going to end up with these conflicts?
I'm very impressed, by the way, with the fact that you were able to absorb all this information. The pedestrian, the planters, the reason why there needs to be some physical separation here is because the bike traffic's going the opposite direction. Normally a bicycle lane is going in the same flow of traffic, so this is sort of a rare exception. So we need something to reduce the risk of a head-on crash. Other than that, there's no sort of programmed pedestrian space here, so we don't anticipate huge conflicts. I do think it's a fair point that tends to be that it's very incumbent upon the cyclist to watch out for pedestrians. In sort of a capital version of this project, you could do more with grade and that sort of thing. But this, again, when we first sort of put it in the ground, we can't sort of dig up the ground and do the $1 million version. We will be doing the markings version. But in terms of, we'll use our whole palette of signs and markings to try to reduce conflict.
Sir, please stand and please
Hi, my name is Nathan. I live at 222 Park Avenue South, which is the building on 18th Street at Park Avenue South. And the point came up earlier, which I don't think was answered. I'd like to ask it again, which is, have you evaluated how this is going to affect and how you're going to deal with the firehouse on 18th Street? Because the way that the fire trucks currently come down 18th Street is a total disaster in terms of traffic, noise, quality of life, and I can only imagine it's going to get much worse. So have you specifically analyzed that problem and how you can deal with that at this point? Because I think it's going to become a real disaster.
Right. We think it's going to get better because we're going to actually work on it and actually evaluate. Like I said, sometimes the traffic is spilling back from 3rd Avenue, sometimes it's Irving Place, sometimes it's Park Avenue South. What we do when we do all of this is a comprehensive look. So we're excited that the 222 Park Avenue folks are here at the meeting. I don't know if you've been sort of writing the mayor and 311s about congestion, but when we get these issues, we go out and we have a number of things in our toolbox. Signal timing changes, turn lanes, markings, parking regulation changes. We made a number of changes. 37th Street, which isn't a residential block, but between Broadway and 7th Avenue, right near 35th Street, excuse me, right near Macy's, sort of had a similar issue where it was the last turn, and we made a number of changes that allowed that street sort of still to work. And arguably, if you looked at that plan before we did it, you said, well, this is the last street, everyone's going to turn on this last street, and it's going to be a disaster because you have the 2 directions of traffic. But we did a number of things to make sure that it would work. And Margaret will be working with you, and we'll all be working with you to make sure that we make this work.
But again, just to ask the question directly, is there a plan? Have you analyzed it specifically? It sounds like there isn't, but that it's something that's going to be considered later.
Well, the initial part of the plan is that the south side of 18th Street approaching Park Avenue would have a curbside turn lane placed in it. So right now, you have a typical side street situation where if the first car wants to turn right onto Park Avenue South, and we get this on a lot of our crosstown streets, there are pedestrians in the crosswalk. That car is waiting for those pedestrians, doing the right thing, and everyone behind it has to wait, and then the light changes and only 1 or 2 cars got through. What we did for the Green Light for Midtown project, a lot of the side streets got turn lanes. The turning cars were sort of out of the way of the through cars and the through traffic processes. So that's sort of element number 1. The second thing would be the signal timing changes, adjusting the traffic signal time, the amount of time that Park Avenue South gets versus the amount of time 18th Street gets. That we will definitely be doing. Sort of the more we can do, we'll be looking at maybe more curb regulation changes, more changes further down at Irving and 3rd Avenue.
I would just urge that you do that ahead of time versus later, and I know you need to do it in an iterative process, but it's a big problem already, which still sounds like it's going to be a bigger problem, and I'd urge the board to consider this and think about this as you consider the overall plan, because I still think it's very problematic.
Yes, please.
Hi, Kate Gutman, also from 222 Park Ave South. I was actually going to ask whether you've taken a look at that street in terms of the loading docks there. We have 2 major loading docks, one from Pets something, Petco, and another one from Barnes & Noble. Those are very active, they're used every day. So is that something that you considered?
Absolutely. There are currently commercial parking regulations, but one of the things that comes with this project would be we're working with the police department on the proper enforcement. Any loading should be happening on the curb or in the loading dock. If there's double parking activity, that when the summonses come, that tends to move. So the attention you'll get and the changes we can make. We can also do markings on the street, which tend to work better than just the signs. There's loading docks that we need to clear. So that'll be something that we look closely at.
So you're envisioning 18th Street being 1 lane and then at the end turning in with a 2nd lane for turning lane?
Correct. On the approach to the Park Avenue
So
South
the loading dock area
intersection.
would still be there as kind of a parked car area?
Yes, further back in the block. Correct.
Okay.
On the south side.
And the second question I had was just regarding Broadway in general. Did you guys take a look at closing it further uptown? At 23rd Street or somewhere closer to 23rd Street?
Yeah, that's actually pull up on the map. It's a very, very astute point. One of the things, again, we're sort of reframing this. This is a photograph of 23rd Street. This is Madison Square Park. The Flatiron Building is just to the left outside the photo, and the new Triangle Plaza, and this is 22nd Street. So the changes we made, like I said before, 5th Avenue has been emphasized, and we used to have 4 lanes of traffic. Again, sort of whittling down sort of the Broadway need. You could, since you want Broadway traffic just to be local access traffic, it is conceivable to sort of do a closure here and have folks get to the blocks via 22nd Street. That would be something we could look at in the future. One of the problems is we have those public amenities that are in the road, and there's so much space between the Flatiron Building and the building on the east that, having the entire block closed would be something we'd want to work out with them, and it would sort of be more space than you would want to program. We would have lots of
In the block south of
sessions.
23rd?
What's that?
Block south of 23rd?
Yeah, the block where you could conceivably do it is the block south between 23 and 22. The block between sort of 5th Avenue and 23rd, it doesn't make sense because the commuter buses
That's looking